Good morning, everyone. We apologize for the late start. The Regents had a wonderful opportunity to have breakfast with a select number of the faculty at the university this morning, and their passion for students, for where we're going based on this strategic plan was very evident to us. I think there's a certain excitement among all of us at this turning point for our great university. So we're going to focus the entire day on the operational and financial review for the University of Arizona. The board's scheduled to meet until 1 p.m. today. Afterwards, the U of A will host a strategic plan reception in Old Main. With that, I'm going to turn it over to President Robbins. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman. Welcome, everyone. I have been apologizing for the cold weather, but all of a sudden they got this room warm enough, so I'm liking that. It'll be good. I'm here representing literally thousands of people, and in 4 hours we're going to try to relay to you as Regents and to the greater world what we've been working on for the last year. Literally thousands of people, tens of thousands of hours that we've worked. As everybody knows by now, there are 168 hours in a week, so use them wisely. So how this is going to go is that there are 5 pillars to the strategic plan. We'll cover pillars 1 and 2. We're getting a little start, but it was well worth it as we had a great breakfast with the faculty members and the Regents conversing and exchanging ideas. But we'll try to stay on track and be done by 11 and give you a 30-minute break and then come back and finish off pillars 3, 4, and 5 and some closing comments. So I'm starting out today to say that we are standing on the shoulders of giants, and President Schaefer and President Likens in particular in this picture have been tremendously helpful to me and have given graciously of their time. I meet with them frequently. If you ever go to the football games and go to the presidential suite, you see they sit side by side, and what you don't see is because most of the coaches have headsets on, they've got these little microphones, and they're actually calling plays from the press box up there down to the coaches. And I saw President Likens here. Is President Schaefer here? All right, President Likens, please stand up. And we meet every month. And the beauty for me is that he just gives it to me like he sees it. He's like an umpire. He calls it as he sees it, and he's been tremendous help. We have very scheduled meetings. President Schaefer just comes to see me when he thinks he needs to tell me something, and I'm incredibly appreciative to both of them. And then, of course, I had the incredible, great fortune, first of all, to have this job. So thanks to the Regents for selecting me. And I remind the faculty of that all the time, or they remind me. They didn't choose me, but you did. So thank you. And President Koffler, I had almost a year with him, and we had the same doctor. So we would sit and talk about our ailments in the waiting room, and his caregiver would remind me at 95 he was still doing Pilates, and I've yet to find the gym yet here. So he was the only alum ever to hold this office, and we'll be honoring and celebrating his life on Monday. So if you can come to the memorial service, that would be great. And this plan, this is not my plan, so I feel somewhat inadequate here delivering the message on behalf of literally thousands of people. But this plan could not have been executed and get to this day without the tremendous leadership of Lisa Ordonez and Elliot Chu. So in the first couple of months, I kind of walked the campus and listened very carefully, and I wouldn't say that 2 stars are born. They were already stars. That's why I selected them. But I will say that after this process, even though they've gotten beaten up, and I mean beaten up, because this has been a very healthy but very involved discussion and they've been challenged over and over and over, and they kept their eye on the ball. And so not two new stars are born, but their stars are shining more brightly today because of this plan. So could you two stand up and let's give you applause. And this just shows you, we couldn't get a picture of everybody, although now that I'm thinking about it, all the things I wish I had done, it was to get everybody on the mall and take one of those pictures from a drone and from above so that you could see how many people were really involved. This is just a collage that represents the initiative leaders, the pillar leads, the deans, The deans are very, very important because they lead our colleges. And as I've always said, the most fundamental academic unit of any university is the department. And the deans look over departments and lead. And this just shows a picture of all the people who've really put their heart and soul into this plan. And I just wanted to thank them. I wanted to thank others that are in the room, but importantly, I want to thank Brew McKenna, who actually took the bait and has been commuting back and forth from Houston to get the band back together again. Brew, I hope we don't have to do this again anytime soon, but thank you for your help. And Christine, Catherine, Wanley, Andre, Claire, all of the people who've been here every week helping us to get this plan together. We couldn't have done it without you, and I look forward to the celebration after this. I was tempted to open the presentation with a little-known one-hit wonder band, the New Radicals, You Only Get What You Get, and it starts out by saying, "Wake up, kids, we've got the dreamer's disease." So all these people have the dreamer's disease, and we're gonna share with you what our dream is to try to make the world a better place through changing the University of Arizona and giving us a roadmap for the next 5, 10, 15 years. So this is actually a picture. I thought it was a photoshopped thing, but this is actually a peek at Mount Lemmon. And you can see the wind was blowing kind of like it was on Monday. And I think this is symbolic, and it represents the mountain that we have to climb here at the University of Arizona for this plan. And, the most difficult part of this is trying, as I kept saying, we've got this giant novel, this classic novel we've produced. Here it is, right here. And you all got, 200 pages worth of our plan. And the most difficult part was, editing down for this presentation, converting a great novel into a, hour-and-a-half feature motion picture. So there are a lot of things that aren't included in here. It doesn't mean that they're not important, but we only have limited time, and the more I talk, the less time we have for you to ask questions, which is the most important part of this presentation. I'll also say that the words that we've produced here, the data, the thoughts that we've collected are really important. But what has been almost as important has been the journey that all of us have been on to re-examine what is the University of Arizona, what are our values, where are we going, what's our true North Star. And I think you'll find that there are some areas where we're really great, but there are also incredible opportunities as we move forward to be even better. So I just want to use the next couple of slides to review what I started with last year in this room at my first presentation at an OFR. And that was to focus in on rankings. And I've, as recently as a couple of weeks ago, been challenged very viscerally and very defiantly about why I talk about rankings. And we can have that debate. We're not going to have it here today unless you want to get into it in the question and answer session. But I think rankings really are important. And I started out last year by saying we've been flat over the last few years. Fortuitously, our rankings improved. We haven't even, just the idea that we were going to do a plan, it's like preseason polls in football. Just the idea we're going to have all those star players shot us up in the poll. But in all candor, the methodology for U.S. News and World Report changed. And I think it broke to our advantage, because instead of giving credit to the elites for acceptance rate, that metric was tossed out. And now universities are getting credit for graduating Pell recipients. And that's right in our sweet spot. Since 35% of our students are first generation, we have the largest number of Pell students of any AAU. And we should not only be proud of that, but it now plays to our advantage. And we only get credit if they graduate. So we've got to do a better job of retaining and graduating all of our students. Coincidentally, also in the rankings, we made it into the top 50 public universities, which was sort of a goal that I had set. I thought both ASU and the University of Arizona are such great institutions. It's a shame. It's a wasted opportunity if we're not both ranked in the top 100 and the top 50 publics. Now I have to re-gauge that. I think we need to be top 75 and a top 30 public, but we'll get to that later. That'll be the next strategic plan, or we'll outperform this one. And these are the next couple of slides are metrics around retention, graduation rates, and research activity. Now, for all of you who really pay attention, and the Regents are really have meticulous attention to detail, these slides are off. The numbers you see on the right are our 15 peer institutions that we're compared to, and if you'll notice at the top it's 2017. The data in the bar graphs, we have this year's data compared to last year's data. The red box is last year's data. But you know the story. We're not retaining our students anywhere close to where we should be. As one of the top global universities based on our research productivity and reputation, our student performance, as I said last year, and I'll maintain again this year, we're just not where we want to be. And I think you're going to find that this is going to be a very student-centric strategic plan. We're going to focus on what our students need, because we want each and every one of our students, no matter where they come from, what their backgrounds are, to be successful. We're here to help our students realize their hopes and dreams, and we can't do that if we can't retain them in school. Additionally, these data are 2 years off. If you'll see the bar graph data, we were at 60% of graduation rate. We've improved over the last 2 years, now to 65%. But in the case of retention, you'll see this plan calls for a 91% retention rate and a 75% graduation rate over the next, by 2025. And it just shows you where we line up with our peers. Now, many of you have said, we are very concerned. We don't think you can hit these goals. And I think it will be a lot of hard work. We'll have to come together and work together. But at the same time, I would say they are conservative goals, because if you notice the number, everybody else is going to be trying to improve. And even if we hit our target goals, we're still going to be in the lowest quartile for student success. But you've got to start somewhere. And then on research activity, this is a graph, and it's hard to read, so I'm glad, even with your pages there, you better put your reading glasses on, because it's a little hard to read. And I know everyone in the back can't, but this is the top 38 research universities in the country, and we rank 38th. Again, the data lags a little bit. Our research activity has gone up over the last couple of years by about $20 million a year. So I think we're on a good trajectory. It clearly is one of the assets and great things about the University of Arizona is our research mission. So it's both. It's about student success, and it's about research. we're in the knowledge generation and knowledge transfer business. We discover new knowledge, and we try to translate that new knowledge into commercializable things that can simply make the world a better place. But we also need to educate the next generation of leaders. No matter what level they go into society, they need the skills and the education to be productive members of their communities and society writ large. So we've got both of these missions. So we did, over the course of the many town halls and the multiple college departmental meetings and engaging with the stakeholders from around the state and really our alumni base, which is around the world. We also recently did a survey that was for the campus community, 15,000 people, which we got about 4,700 respondents to. But it's very clear, and it confirms empirically what you all told me before I agreed to come and take this job, and what I've observed over the last 15 months. We've got incredibly strong, talented people who are highly motivated, who love this place and want to come to work every day and do great things. Where we have opportunities is around holding everyone accountable for what their job is, clearly defining which lane they swim in, but also managing them and helping them succeed in their job. We also need alignment around our values, and I'll talk about values in Pillar 5. But there was clear from the respondents in the survey and from the workshops that we've done that people are desperate for a strategic clarity. What's our true North Star? Where are we going? And I'm hoping that this plan begins to address that. Today is really the beginning, is the end of the beginning as we go forward. The implementation phase that I'll talk about at the end is where the real work is going to happen. I've said this often. I stole this from one of my friends in Australia, Andrew Forrest, Twiggy. I'm giving you credit right now for this because I stole it from you. But we are a team of champions. We have incredibly talented individuals. What we're seeking to do is build a championship team. And that requires us to work together, to be clearly aligned around a set of strategic objectives and then execute on them. So this is what we're all about. This is our manifesto, Regent Myers. I wasn't allowed to put manifesto on the slide. This is our commitment. This is our contract. This is our promise to our students, to our faculty, to all of our stakeholders. Just parenthetically, the checklist manifesto developed for aviation and for medicine, particularly heart surgery, has saved thousands and thousands of lives. So when you said manifesto, it resonated with me, but it didn't make it into the slide deck, but I wanted to give you credit for encouraging me to call it our manifesto. This is our public declaration for where we're going to go with this university. And I'll read this to you because I think these are powerful words. We're going to develop innovative, adaptive learners who will go out into the world to be disruptive problem solvers who are prepared to lead meaningful lives and improve society in this fourth industrial revolution economy. Improve society, simply make the world a better place. In the second mission that I talked about around we're in the knowledge generation business, we're going to invest in the discovery, research, and creative endeavors that are going to seek to go out and solve the world's grand challenges. And finally, we'll leverage the Arizona's unique assets, and we are different. I always used to go around and look at operating rooms, and they would say, yeah, if you've seen one operating room, you've seen one operating room, because they're all different. They're still operating rooms, and universities are universities, but they all have a distinctive set of assets, and I would say the University of Arizona has a soul. And that soul is being reawakened to focus on we're in a changing world, and where we're going will be captured in this plan. Not totally, but in large part. And we're going to use our advantage of being a diverse population of people from all over the world. And we'll use that to leverage our strengths to integrate and collaborate with our partners locally and around the globe, the across the street and around the world approach. And I think as the land-grant university for the fourth industrial revolution, this is our manifesto. So I've talked about the fourth industrial revolution, and I remember when I first arrived, even before I took the job, Jeff Goldberg, Jeff, thank you for everything you've done to be a part of this and to be a great leader at this university for over 3 decades now, and for stepping in to do the most difficult job at this university, which is be the provost. But I remember you and others have a book club every month, and you chose the book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, in preparation for me arriving here because I'd been talking about it. And we had a lively discussion that day around how in the world could you be thinking of a university in terms of the fourth industrial revolution in some small book that was very dense, and I remember the critique of that book being somewhat brutal. But anyway, I just wanted to review the fourth industrial revolution. You know, it started with the first industrial revolution with mechanization, steam engines, and automated or mechanized weaving machines, and it resulted in the Luddites who thought this is going to be terrible for the world. We have to break into these factories and destroy these machines because our jobs are going to be taken away, and we can put it into this. We'll just break the machines, and this will all be over. And it's progressed through electricity and the digital revolution, and then now this fourth industrial revolution, which is the convergence of physical, digital, and biological sciences. And it's captured in the book by Klaus Schwab, and I think it's worthy of noting that we shouldn't be like the Luddites and be afraid of technology. We should embrace it. We should leverage it. We should use it to help us learn better, to do our jobs better, to be more effective. And we shouldn't allow it to destroy society, to further our gap between the haves and the have-nots, but use technology and the concepts around the fourth industrial revolution to help our societies and our people be more productive and do better things. I also wanted to reference President Allen's book, Robot Proof, at Northeastern University. I think that he captures many of the guiding principles of the fourth industrial revolution and puts it in the context of higher education. I really believe that the University of Arizona can be the land-grant university in the fourth industrial revolution. We've got a chance to redefine ourselves in terms of what our students need to be prepared to go out and be competitive for jobs in this ever-changing, rapidly changing world. And I just put up a couple of other articles here about what role do universities have in the fourth industrial revolution? And then the Wall Street Journal just last week published an expose on what the fourth industrial revolution is and how important it is. And it's not some futuristic thing. We're living it right now. So we need to be aligning our research programs and preparing our students to be competitive, and not only competitive, but to thrive in this new world. So this is a video that sort of shameless self-promotion of the University of Arizona around the fourth industrial revolution.
We've done incredible things at this university. We've made the moon landing possible, the first portable artificial heart. And we understand climate because we know tree rings. But yesterday's thinking isn't enough. We have 2 jobs: to prepare our students for a tomorrow that's so different it's hard to imagine, and to share what we know to make life better. Our world is changing faster than ever. Lines are blurring. We're redefining what it means to be human, and every decision has a global impact. Our students want to make a difference, but wonder what we can teach them that they can't learn on their own. We need to teach students how to think, but to stay relevant, to outpace the world, we need to change. Everything. By thinking bigger, breaking routines, and collaborating more intensely. Not a single one of us is exempt from this mind shift. To prepare disruptive problem solvers, we must disrupt. To make the world better, we must do better. Together.
So in this very room last year, we started talking about this process. And over the course of the last year, we've had multiple stakeholder engagement meetings like this one that was captured in this photograph, and also in Phoenix, and have gone around the state. We've engaged over 10,000 Wildcats in this process. You've all seen the 5 pillars, the first one being around students. This is a very student-centric plan. The second around research and discovery. The third about being the new land-grant university in this 4th industrial revolution. 4 will be around our global and international efforts. And the 5th pillar will be around how we actually run the university better. Better business processes more efficiently to serve our students, our faculty, and our staff. This is a slide that I'll refer back to. Of course, you can't read it, not even in your books can you hardly read it. But it just outlines the over 90 initiatives. And these were developed by real people who were leading them with groups to design strategies, tactics to achieve those strategies, metrics to measure success, and identifying the resources necessarily to execute this plan. And you can see just by the sheer numbers, this is a very student-centric plan focused around the first pillar. So I'm running behind, so I'm speeding up a little bit, and I know the producers are in my ear telling me you're way behind, you're way behind. But you know, we started a little bit late, and you're going to get a chance. And I forgot to say, at any point, I'm trying to read your eyes. If you want to ask me a question, please stop me and ask me. But I wanted to cover our goals for student success. I've already alluded to them that we're going to go out and recruit a very high quality, high potential student body. But we're also, for the first time, and I credit many people, and Vendel Casino and his team and Casey for thinking about, because I thought we need to raise the quality, therefore we need to lower the number of students that we admit to the University of Arizona, because we can't grow to be as big as ASU or other big universities, because we have limited resources. But I was wrong about that. They have identified something that I believe is going to be of great service to the citizens and the students of Arizona, and that's focusing on transfer students. To focus with our partners, certainly here at Pima Community College, but also I was just out visiting the Tohono O'odham Nation, and they've got a community college there with nearly 500 students, and we just haven't done a good job of going out and working with them and helping them do better and partnering with them. Cochise Community College, Vin and his team went down, and I got a call from the chancellor thanking us for coming down. And of course, Maricopa Community College, there are 200,000 students, and we've just never focused on these students. And I think that's something that I look forward to watching and helping build out in this plan. I said we're going to have 91% retention rate, 75% 6-year graduation rate. And there are many different initiatives, as you saw in that earlier slide. There are 4 that I wanted to focus on: general education, active collaborative teaching and learning, student success and retention, and our honors village. These are three quotes that we pulled from a task force that was commissioned by Gail Bird around general education. And what it says is we've had a proliferation of general education courses. We've not had proper oversight. It's very difficult for our students to maneuver this system, and it calls for reform for us to put in some central oversight and structure as we go forward. Our general education vision is that we're going to develop a core set of courses and themes that will help our students be prepared for this fourth industrial economy by studying grand challenges and looking at driving questions. The first tenet in this Wildcat Core is, and I'll have to say, there have been Elliot and Gail and Vin and Bruce Johnson, the Dean of Education, and many others. You saw 2141, the home that I am privileged to live in. We would sit in that great room and have debates and discussions and talk about what does general education need to be at the University of Arizona. Almost every university is debating this and struggling with it, but I want to thank everyone who's put a lot of effort and a lot of deliberation in developing learning outcomes so we'll know what our students are learning. Moreover, we're going to have professors examining how effective they are at teaching and delivering this information. We want to develop critical skills for our students so that they'll be ready to go out and have the mentality and the tools to think about design thinking and coding. And then a required first-year course that I'll show you some of the ideas we have for. But importantly, in that red box, a central oversight structure that will give some clarity to this process. And we're going to get right on this. We're going to start some pilots in the fall of 2019, including this first-year introductory boot camp type course. So just like Arizona has the 5 C's, I got a lot of pushback on this, but I got it in. We had some creative differences with the producers and directors, but I got this in. And this has not been codified by all of the experts in general education, but I thought it highlighted what I had hoped that the core learning objectives would be, that our students would develop critical thinking, communication, both written and verbal communication skills, collaborative teamwork to solve big problems, have an understanding of the differences of the world because we're in a globally competitive economy now, so have cultural understanding, creative problem solving. These are the 5 C's of general education that I think are important. Of course, civic engagement, service back to the community. There are many other C's we could add to this list. One that does not begin with the C, we could call commanding leadership. Leadership is very important for our students, in my opinion. So this video, what I've learned is that companies like Google and Amazon and Apple, they want to hire generalists. They want students that have those core skills and values. And Jeff Bezos was supposed to be on video. Actually, he was supposed to fly in on a drone, but we got mixed up. And so we got Taylor Lawrence to do this video for us.
At present, just over 8% of all of Raytheon Company's 64,000 employees hold a degree from the U of A. Raytheon will hire more than 260 U of A grads this year alone, and we've hired nearly 1,000 of them from 2014 to the present. UA students are consistently up to the task of tackling some of the most demanding challenges in technology and in advancing and managing the business. The success of U of A grads at Raytheon has acted as a catalyst for the increasingly important relationship between our company and the university. This relationship has an impact on national security. It has an impact on Raytheon's global growth. It makes us a more productive company because U of A grads are quality employees who can work complex problems and care about business outcomes. The educational institutions such as the U of A that help prepare students to compete in these and other digital fields will be the schools that grow their capabilities faster and make stronger contributions to industry and society. We want to see the U of A transforming into the fourth industrial revolution alongside Raytheon's own transformation so that we can take this partnership to several next levels together.
So I think that illustrates what the competitive job market that's out there and what we need our students to have a great foundation in. And this first-year course that's being developed, you can see the things that that we hope that students will learn as they get ready. You know, as a pre-medical student, I was really focused on physics and organic chemistry, and I didn't really want to take the time to broaden my horizons with a liberal arts education. But I went to a small liberal arts college, and it absolutely changed my life. And I think our students, as I've taught to them this big 450 courses and how do we maneuver, and we need to just focus on our engineering studies and all the things. I think we need to slow the game down, emphasize that all of these 5 C's that can be developed will help you no matter what you do in your life, whether you are an engineer at Raytheon or you're going to law school. Critical thinking skills, communication skills, these fundamental foundational skills are so important. And I'm glad to see that we're getting this introduced into the curriculum as a pilot in the fall. Active learning and teaching, Gail Bird, John Pollard, Paul Blowers, who you'll see in the video in just a minute, have really been national leaders in this movement around using the so-called flipped classroom for peer-to-peer mentoring and teaching. Instead of the sage on stage, as Sean Sutton calls it, it's the coach on the sideline that's helping students in real time to help them understand and learn what they need to do. Through this process, people have started to think we need more of these flipped classrooms, and so we're reimagining the old chemistry building as an innovative teaching hub as a possibility. Whoever lives in there right now, don't freak out. This is not, it's not decided totally, but this could be a place where we could have a whole building dedicated to collaborative teaching and learning. One of the key points of this, and I give President Schaefer always said he wanted to connect the main library to the engineering library, but Bear Down Gym was in between, and he wasn't going to be the guy who tore down Bear Down Gym. So Melissa Vito and Sean Sutton and Bill Del Casino and others envisioned this idea that we could build a student success district. And I'll show you a video in a little fly-through, but it'll essentially be repurposing Bear Down Gym as a center for student activities to help them as a one-stop shop, and opening up and connecting the libraries and putting another building on the back to create this vibrant community where they can go and they can get advising, they can do job interviews, they can have maker spaces, as you'll see on one of the slides, where the traditional library, yeah, it happens when I use certain words, Siri just kicks on. I don't know how that happens, but somebody's monitoring me. But this will be a transformational, differentiated facility, and the programs that go on in this Student Success District will be like no other in the U.S.
One of the things that's really unique about the Student Success District design is it's an intentional design of 4 different buildings that are adjacent to each other and their outdoor spaces to create one seamless student experience. And this is really distinctive to the U of A. We're not aware of any other university that's attempted this in terms of integrating library spaces and services, as well as student success, student affairs spaces and services, so that students can really easily move from one space and service to another.
When you think about a space, you have to imagine it as a site where people come together, and that's exactly what we're building here. And learning is not a singular pursuit. Learning always happens in concert with other people. So the Student Success District is designed to increase collaboration between students, because that peer-to-peer learning is as important, if not more important, than some of the learning that goes on in all the other spaces, including the classroom.
I will share with you that when I first came to the University of Arizona, I was a very gifted lecturer. I won lots of awards in that format, but students were still not passing my class. What lecturing is, in my mind, is me talking at students, and the students are passively receiving that information of some sort. And then they watch me solve an example, and they go home and they try and do the homework, and what looked really easy when I did it, all of a sudden isn't. And so lecturing is one way of conveying information to students, but it doesn't allow for the opportunity of me to really see what they're understanding. And I will say, since I moved into the collaborative learning spaces, which really facilitate the active learning, like this room here, not a single student has fallen asleep in my class. Attendance hovers around 90 to 95% on any given day, and you don't see that in lecture hall very often.
So Paul shared with us in the faculty breakfast this morning, first of all, in the first week of school last year, I got to go and observe Paul teaching in his collaborative classroom. I was impressed. He knew every student's name. 100 students in the class. He walked around, called them by name, and he told me. And Paul, you can tell me later if I got this wrong. But essentially, he teaches high-level, very difficult chemical engineering course that he said before changing to this active collaborative style, around half of the students could pass or either finish his course, and now over 90% of students finish his course successfully. So I think that's a testament not only to his ability and his seeing the future and changing his pedagogical approach, but it also says a lot about him as a person. He shared with us this morning that he went to a high school that didn't even offer trigonometry. And now he's one of our most esteemed professors at this university. And he and so many of our faculty, staff care about our students and want to see success for each and every one of our students. So the libraries, the new Student Success District, very impressive buildings, but what goes on in the buildings, I think, will be more important than the buildings themselves. There are programs around First Cats for first-generation students that have more than 90% retention rates. New Start just celebrated 50 years of helping students, primarily from our Latino and Hispanic communities, and that program where they come for 6 weeks before school starts that first semester, and they get to live in the dorm, and they get to take classes, and they get to go to this boot camp and get ready for college. 50 years into this, the retention rate in that program is 90%. And I said, why don't we do this for every student? Well, this costs money and requires resources, but this is absolutely the meticulous attention to detail that we need to have for all of our students if we're going to get out of that bottom quartile with our peers. And then finally in this session, I wanted to just talk about the Honors Village. I think Dean Hunt in recruiting Associate Deans John Pollard and Melissa Fitch are really developing an exciting new curriculum and new direction for our honor students. And this building facility, this complex, this village, will be as good, if not the best in the country, that currently will be scheduled to be open for students in the fall of next year. And so if you walk through it, I have to point on this screen, but the dorm rooms are here. Yeah, I don't have a laser. You can see it. Dorm rooms in the red, and then all the activities that are currently spread out across the campus will be centralized in this one village with a rec center, with a dining hall, with all the classrooms and the administrative offices being in this one village. So our students can get this high-touch, highly directed liberal arts experience inside this large research university, and you can go to football games. Please come on Saturday after Thanksgiving. I know maybe we won't have a lot of students here, but a big game. We're going to have to beat Arizona State, I think, to get to a bowl game, so it's going to be good. But you can have this incredible liberal arts experience by some of our master professors like Paul Blowers, like our Regents professors, people who are, Dante, who you'll see on a video in the next section, who's leading the Osiris Rex program. Leaders from our health sciences come in and talk to our students about their life and about how important it is to get real life experience and also combine that with a liberal arts education. That's it. I'm finished with the first section. So your question, your timing is perfect. I'm also 20 minutes behind time, but that's okay.
Honors Village. So you're recruiting right now for honor students in the Honors Village for fall 19?
Yes.
So recruiting students without facilities to show them yet. What are you anticipating the enrollment will be first year there?
Well, I think, we have an honors college now. And we have about 1,000 students, and so I am confident that we're going to have 1,000 students. The difference, I think, is we're going to have many more highly qualified students than we potentially can accommodate. And I know that Dean Hunt is looking at raising the bar for what it means to be an honor student at University of Arizona, and I think that's a good thing. So, we are starting to think about how we're going to market this new village, and also not just the new village, but the programs that'll go on inside the village. I mean, Terry's only been here a year, and I think he's putting his team together and thinking about what are the differentiated type of programs and curriculum and seminars and experiences that will go on. What's traditionally gone on here at our honors college, because it's been spread out all over the campus, is you go for the first year, you live in a dorm, and then there's not a lot of connectivity back. I think this new village with rec center and food and seminar series and things going on in that beautiful green space in the quad inside of it, I hope our honor students will stay connected for all 4 years.
Is the anticipation that it would only be freshmen in the dorms,
It would be only freshmen in the dorm, but there is enough leeway that if you want to stay in the dorm, then I think that you can be accommodated. But traditionally, that's what the model has been. And that gets me into another thing about, I think all of our students should want to live on campus. We don't have enough dormitory rooms now, but we need to build more. I also think that we need, right alongside the Honors Village, the next project, I think, is going to be focused on building a graduate student village that would serve the graduate students who are incredibly important to this university, and I'll get into that more on the research side of things. But we need to invest in our graduate students. They're so important to the success of the university. So giving them a place that would be sort of out in front of Eller, so they could live there and go across the street and go to Eller or the law school or engineering or the health sciences. I think that's going to be really important, and at least from the focus groups I've done with students would be quite positive in terms of the desire to want to live there. But we've got to look at expenses. People live off campus now because we charge them too much to live on campus. So we're looking at that and the possibility of building new dorms. So I think the health of a university is indirectly measured by how many students want to stay on campus all 4 years. Other questions?
Thank you, Dr. Robbins. I just want to go back to the beginning of this, and I wanted to compliment you and the entire team. Your manifesto, as you said, but I see this as such a great platform. The whole idea of the fourth industrial revolution and the idea that it's a changing world. And while we're going to spend the rest of the day going through a lot of the particulars of what you've come up with already, kind of the most important thing to me is the recognition that we don't know what's going to come, but we're going to help shape what that is, and U of A is going to play a key role. And I think the whole underpinnings of this is the idea of U of A being a leadership university, being a leadership entity in this state and the world, and unleashing that power of the people of U of A to go make that happen. So I just want to congratulate the whole team on the fundamental way you started this. The details are great, and the details will change over time as people come up with new ideas. But putting that challenge in place and starting from that position, I think, is great, and it's what a great university should do. So thank you.
Thank you for your 9 years of guiding this this whole enterprise, but particularly living down here and all the things you've done for the community here and pushing me. I mean, they're very kind words when we're off camera. You know, you challenge us, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the this process of the give and take and the challenge, and we're not finished with this yet. As I said, this is the end of the beginning, and so I look forward, even when the governor does finally put someone in the game. You know, I think what they do on the football field, you see them patting their head. That means I want to come out of the game because I'm tired. Maybe you need to send a video patting your head, and so the governor will get you some relief. But you're going to remain involved in because you live here, and we greatly appreciate all your help on this. We can't move on because we haven't spent enough time on the clock. You still have more time for questions, but I'm happy to move on because that means I get more time on the research side.
Faster, funnier. Great.
Yeah.
Move on.
Okay. Well, we had a chance to meet with each one of you over the past few months and kind of bring you along. And we had a good exchange yesterday morning about some of the important parts of this plan. So I'll keep going on, and we'll move now into the research and discovery side, another important mission for the university. And I would say, you know, I don't know if President Schaefer made it here, but when I talked and I visited with every one of my predecessors, and they all pointed to President Schaefer being the transformational president of this university, who got us on the right pathway, and I think he was probably 37 when he started as president, and I don't know if he's here. Did he make it? President Schaefer, thank you very much for being here and all the guidance you've given me. Yeah. And there he and President Likens are sitting scheming about how they're going to beat the Pirate up at Washington State this weekend in football. But I do think it was an important time for the university, and the beauty is he's a scientist, but at the same time focused on the arts, created the Center for Creative Photography, the Poetry Center, which is one of the great poetry centers in this country. So we have a lot to, and I personally have a lot to owe to both he and President Likens for being around, and I can just go, there are not many people, and President Crow and I talk about this all the time. These are hard jobs, and there are not many people who understand. Regent Penley certainly is somebody that I can go to and understands what the complexities and challenges of this job are. But I've really appreciated all of the guidance and support I've gotten in the short time I've been here, and hope to be here for a long time. So one of the things that makes this university great, and if you look at why we're consistently ranked in the top 100 universities on all global rankings, I think this year we were, by one of the rankings, ranked 60th worldwide, is because of our research productivity. And we, of course, want to continue to invest in our research enterprise. I think it gives, one of the things that is a little different about University of Arizona and from the previous strategic plan that President Hart put together is 100% engagement. I think that's fantastic. And the opportunity for undergrads on this campus to be involved and to actually, you'll see Dante talk about this in the Osiris Rex project, to actually be part of that and do research and understand how the research that they do either in the Health Sciences Center or in engineering or in the environment or at the biosphere affects the bigger picture of the world, I think is one of the differentiating parts of the university, and it keeps us competitive. So even though we're ranked 38th, I am absolutely confident that we can do better and that we can be a top 25 research university. You see in the third bullet point that we want to be a top 25 health sciences research center. Currently, we're ranked 54th. I think that's where there's going to be a lot of opportunity moving forward. in the world as we move into this fourth industrial revolution, but I think specifically because of the University of Arizona's assets, not the least of which is we have 2 medical schools, great pharmacy, nursing, and public health. But also we've got a clinical partner in Banner that I think will help us get to move up to the rankings, and I'm confident we can hit our goals and actually exceed our goals that we have for our research goal. So we say that we want to hit $800 million in research activity by 2025. I think this is one of the few goals, the ABOR goals, that we're actually saying we're going to exceed, because I think it's $752 million. It was the original ABOR goal, or the revised ABOR goal. Maybe it was $1.2 billion, and someone got some reality check and moved it back to 750. So I think this is a reasonable goal. But if you go back to that slide of the 38 top research universities, what I would love to be able to do is be here long enough to hit the $1 billion mark. I think that our endowment needs to be about, is it $800+ million now, needs to be about $2 billion, and we need to have $1 billion in research activity, and I absolutely believe we could hit that. By 2025, I think we'll hit the 800 million for all the reasons I've said. And there's no magic formula there. I've been told that you all want to hear exactly how we're going to get there. We're going to get there one grant at a time. We're going to recruit and retain star faculty from all over the world. We have the facilities, we have the mentality, we've got great weather, great culture. There's a soul to this place that people want to be here. And that's how we're going to win research grants. And we've got to do a better job of recruiting faculty members from all walks of life and all backgrounds. And as I've said before, our diversity at this university, especially as we go into this globally competitive fourth industrial revolution economy, is going to be one of the great strengths of this university. Equally, we've got to attract great grad students and professional students, but the graduate students are the students of how this actually works. Is brilliant professors will conceive of and write grants and go out and win the grants. And who does the work actually are our graduate students, our undergraduate students, our postdocs. That's how this whole thing works. So we've got to double down and invest and support our graduate students, not only in the research side, but also allow them to get in the classroom and to teach our undergrads. Because many of them, if we can't begin to change the quality of our teaching by our professors, because most of the time you're not taught actually how to teach. And we've got a great opportunity, and I think Gail and her team and others are thinking about how we do evaluations of our professors. This didn't go over very well, but I suggested, well, we videotape them and we get a quality control person, just like the NFL has, and you look at everything they talk about and you give them positive feedback. I don't know that we're there yet on that idea, but the idea is we need to start with our graduate students and teaching them how to teach and give them the opportunity to teach. And then finally, it's really important to have the facilities to be able to do this work. And to be able, when you put a grant in, there's always an environmental and a facilities part of any grant application. And the funding agencies want to know that if they give you the money to do this work, you're actually going to have the facilities, the equipment, the infrastructure in place, and mostly the intellectual talent to be able to be successful in advanced science and have new discoveries for the betterment of our state, our country, and indeed the world. So this part of the plan, we'll get into it in Pillar 3 around our service to the state, our stewardship back, what's in it for the state when they invest in us. And economic development is clearly one of the great multipliers of being located near a research university. I think if you look at the economics of it, it's about a 3.4 multiplier on how communities around great research universities develop their economies. And you saw Taylor Lawrence and Raytheon. I mean, their world headquarters is outside Boston, but their missile defense business is here. And what Taylor always tells me, I ask him, what can we do for you? He said, keep producing engineers, but keep producing engineers that have those core 5 C's that when they hit the ground running here, they know how to work in teams, they know how to be leaders, they know how to communicate and how to critically think. So this is how we're going to get to that 800 number, and I think we've got the opportunity to do even better. These are the areas, again, this is somewhat sensitive because I can remember when we were doing a strategic plan at Stanford and it came down to the final cut, and I was lobbying the president very hard that cardiovascular diseases kill more people than anything else in the world. Cancer now does, because we've done better at mitigating cardiovascular disease. But at the final cut, neurosciences and stem cell biology made it, and cardiovascular didn't, so I was really disappointed. But it didn't stop me from raising money, doing our research, and running our institute. And it won't stop if I don't mention the discipline that you work in. It doesn't mean it's not important, but these are the things that we're really going to focus on. First area is around space. I mean, we've got to be able to continue to invest in the things that made us great, that got us to where we are, and we'll continue to do it. And it just so happens there's great opportunity around space. Around human health, it's obvious that that's going to be one of the world's great challenges, not only in the science side of things, but also in policy and societal issues. Data, computer, and network science, it's the fundamental platform of the fourth industrial revolution. We've got to be good at that. We've also got to incorporate humanities into this. And then finally, the environment is so important that we at the university have the Institute of the Environment, over 300 researchers that are focused here, and we're one of the great universities around environmental studies, and particularly around arid lands. So for space, there are many things that we can focus on, not the least of which would be exploration. What's out there? What are the origins of the universe? How did we all get here? Just when you start thinking you're all that, just remember, we're just one little speck in that big universe out there. And, there was a recent article, and I was going to have a fly-through here about it because it was so timely, about Harvard professors see moving object that's accelerating and decelerating, and they think that it's a spaceship from another galaxy or another universe coming to say hello to us and explore with us. Well, I'm not really sure. We can ask the real experts who do rocket science what they think about it, but I think the point is we're out there. The whole OSIRIS-REx project is trying to sample this asteroid, Bennu, and try to get an analysis of what the origins of the universe and how we got here and what's out there. That's, we've got telescopes to the north, east, west, south, and that's why we're so good here. I ask, why are we so good at astronomy and planetary sciences? Is because we've got great weather, 325 nights out of the year. You've got a beautiful portal into the universe. The other one is around using satellites and imaging to help things on Earth, particularly around watching around crops and water and other things that'll be turning back on Earth. That great picture, the first picture of Earth, was from our team here as we were scouting out places for the first landing on the moon. And then the rogue professor who was told he could only take pictures of the moon at the last minute turned the camera and took a picture of the Earth, and was the first picture of the Earth. So there are a lot of things that we can do in the space environment, and I would say, as I'll talk about in the third pillar, some potential partnerships we can do. But the business of space, which I didn't really understand until we got into this process, about doing asteroid mining for precious metals. That seems a very low margin business, but as President Crow and I were talking about it, this is something that is it's a real thing, and I think we're going to see it happen. I had some venture capitalists from Palo Alto recently tell me that their fund is only investing in the business of space. And did I know that if you produced fiber optic cable for telecommunications and microgravity, that it's like 10x more efficient? Again, I think a very low margin business, but people are thinking about this stuff. The one that Dean Joaquin Ruiz told me about the other day, which I'm now starting to get on to it, is that we've got a company here that you'll hear about in a video called Vector. It just figured out how to launch satellites at low cost, or relatively low cost, probably the size of this, to put these satellites out and to encircle the entire Earth so that you could send signals from anywhere on Earth constantly, and think about using those satellites as part of a series of computers, the so-called blockchain, for cybersecurity or for data management. This is the kind of business that I think that we, not only here at the University of Arizona and Southern Arizona, but the entire state, are poised to take advantage of. So this is Dante Laurietta, who is just incredible individual, who leads the OSIRIS-REx program. One of the first missions that NASA ever entrusted to someone other than NASA to do, and the University of Arizona is doing this and has run another project.
There's an enormous benefit to our faculty, to our staff, and to our students to be leading a NASA mission like OSIRIS-REx. It allows really highly talented people to be attracted to our institution, both in the faculty but also in our engineering staff and our support services. It's been a great educational experience for our students, working hands-on on OSIRIS-REx since we started conceiving of the mission. These are real jobs with real resume building experience, and our students have gone off to great careers in space, engineering, management, and many other disciplines.
Just in Tucson, we have companies ranging from Raytheon Missile Systems to Worldview doing ballooning at the edge of space that is really space missions, to Vector that is launching small satellites into space, something that nobody ever was able to do before. These are the kinds of companies, and the companies that will come with them, that we want to work with.
We need to become proactive in promoting the University of Arizona, making sure not only does the city of Tucson know about the amazing things that we do here, but that reverberates throughout the United States, Washington, D.C., and even worldwide.
So I think everyone here knows about how good we are in space science and astronomy. I think we can even do better, and you'll see a couple of my thoughts in Pillar 3 when we come back from our break. I want to move on to one of the other parts of our research portfolio and initiatives, and that, of course, is human health. And you can see to the right there the incredible amount of opportunities we have across this campus, certainly south of Speedway, to work with the different colleges here, whether it's optical sciences. And I have to say, you know, optical sciences is just an incredible program that Tom Koch and others have built here over the years. And they probably have more partnerships and do more economic development for this region by working with Fortune 50 companies. And so we're incredibly lucky to have them. And you're going to hear some more really good news coming out of optical science in the coming weeks to months. And I'll show you a building that'll be built in their neighborhood that we've heard about at committee meetings. But the opportunity for our health sciences programs to collaborate across the other colleges is tremendous, and I think it's one of the great advantages we have by having 2 medical schools and the other health sciences colleges partnered with Banner. If you look across the United States in communities of 1 million and less, unless if you have an academic medical center in that small a population in that catchment area, then without having a partner, you're going to struggle. And I know that the partnership with Banner was something that was very difficult, and it was born out of a time of necessity and need. But I think it's going to turn out to be one of our great competitive advantages as we look forward to have a system that's the 7th largest in the United States, and to be able to leverage all of these technologies and to really change the way that healthcare and medicine and wellness are delivered, I think are a competitive advantage. Much of that is going to be focused around data and data management, hence why I keep talking about the 4th Industrial Revolution so much. And as you can see, the collaborative boxes there, Bio 5, as I often tell Tom Keating, Bio 5 was the 4th Industrial Revolution before the 4th Industrial Revolution was ever conceived of by Klaus Schwab. Also, Shane Burgess, our Vice President for College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, I mean, he was on to this a long time ago. And when I was giving a talk and said, just imagine that we'll have that in the future, farmers will have these fleets of drones that will go out and assess their property and assess their crops and use data analysis. He said, we were on to that, 10 years ago. So Shane and Jennifer Barton and others that are around the university are running these big operations really understand this. And I think the new veterinary school that we're starting, and we have a dean. I think Jeff has made an offer, and hopefully she's accepted and will start in January, is very exciting for us because it combines this One Health concept that goes all the way from the farms and the ranches, and not only crops and livestock with our incredible land grant mission of cooperative extension and helping farmers and ranchers, but while we're there, we can also be talking to them and their families about their personal health. One of the areas that we have great strength with here, in addition to the artificial heart you saw in the video, is telemedicine. They were one of the experts in telemedicine, came to the University of Arizona over 30 years ago and got that program started. And that's going to be, Mike Dake has come to lead the Health Sciences Center, and I'm incredibly grateful that he also wanted to get the band back together here in the desert. And I think he's doing a tremendous job with some of the people like Larry Goldberg that's been hired by Banner to be the CEO over the academic medical center side. I think their partnership has allowed us to now start talking about these transformative fundamental discoveries that can be made across all of our colleges and incorporated into redefining the future of healthcare and wellness care. So the 3 areas that the health sciences have chosen to focus on around unlocking the mysteries of the future health puzzles are around the brain. Obviously, we're very good at neuroscience. If you look south of Speedway, John Hildebrand, Lynn Nadell, Carol Barnes, who is one of the most gifted neuroscientists in the country, have tremendous neuroscience programs on the main campus, if you will. And then the recruitment of Robbie Brenton and others on the north side of Speedway, bringing those groups together along with Eric Ryman, who is in Phoenix, who is a world's expert, along with Robbie Brenton on dementia and Alzheimer's. This is a powerful a group of investigators that can come together and help unlock some of the mysteries of why people get dementia. We still don't know. What are we going to do with our aging population? By 2030, this country will be spending $20 trillion. That's a T, not a B. $20 trillion on the care of individuals with cognitive dysfunction, dementia, and Alzheimer's disease. So we need to learn how to help our individuals age and have better quality of life, and how to take care of them. I think a lot of this is going to happen because we're doing a better job of mitigating the ravages of cancer through the second bullet, which is immunobiology for cancer and the entire immune system. Remember, we just mapped the whole human genome about 15 years ago. It took 10 years and billions of dollars. If we were going to invest in the next big thing like that, it would be a human immunome project, because your immune system from fighting infections, emerging pathogens in the world, to turning your immune system on. We all get cancer every day in our bodies. Our immune system find those cancers and kill them. So by definition, if you develop cancer, you've got some dysfunction of your immune system compared or in concert with your genetics and your environment. If you smoke, for instance, you're at a higher risk of lung cancer. But your immune system has to fight those cancer cells. And the Nobel Prize for Medicine was just won by Jim Allison at MD Anderson for this work. So I'm glad to see that this area of discovery and treatment and diagnosis made it into the plan. And then finally, we were awarded one of the largest precision medicine grants in the country's history, $48 million, and they thought we were doing such a good job, they increased it to $60 million, which never happens from funding agencies. But we clearly have a great strength in precision health, genomics, proteomics, metabolomics. And the reason we got that grant, in my opinion, as an outsider at that point, going, wow, University of Arizona, they're punching above their weight there. Why is it? Two factors, I believe. Well, three. One, we've got great scientists who do great work. We've got a diverse population of patients with a large Hispanic, Latino, large Native American population that makes these data important and interesting. And then the final one is because we have Banner. We've got a system to be able to recruit patients and deliver care and answer some of these questions because of our partnership with Banner. So I think that's those are three important pillars in the strategic plan. Stem cells didn't make it in there. That's my particular area, and I really like stem cells, but I couldn't lobby hard enough to get stem cells in there. So twice in these strategic planning processes I've lost out, but at the end we're all going to be winners. After, as I said, this is the end of the beginning part of this process, and I'm thankful that when Mike came here that he pushed hard on that they need to be part of this plan. I was just looking for some collaborative projects across Speedway, north of Speedway, that could be part of this plan, but he pushed me really hard to say, no, we need to have a full-on strategic plan for the health sciences that incorporates into the main campus plan. So this idea that they're two different plans, I really don't like. This is one plan, and the health sciences are a big part, just like the environment and planetary sciences and astronomy are. But there is a need going forward for Banner, now that Larry Goldberg and Mike Dake have been here for almost a year, that we do need to partner with Banner to do an in-depth strategic plan for the clinical part of the operation, but integrating the teaching and research mission and discovery mission of the university into the culture of Banner. So this is the first time that Banner has really gotten involved in academic medicine, and it's not like running all of their other hospitals. That's clear. Secondly, you know, our physicians and our staff, there's a rigor, and the world is changing to focus on protocols and, dare I say, artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms, and we've got to be up to speed together as we advance those technologies to simply take care of patients and better and improve our outcomes, but at the same time fulfill our education and research mission. So there'll be another plan that we'll come back to present to you, which is the combined Banner U of A Health Sciences plan. I wanted to sneak in a commercial. Maybe I could do it at the break. They'll kill me for this, but I don't know if any of you have seen the advertisement that Banner, U of A Banner has, that I saw when I was watching the local Fox affiliates and watching a football game on Saturday. It's outstanding. And maybe I'll stimulate you to go look it up. So we'll have a plan that will come back that I think is really going to be important, that'll focus on, you know, what service lines, what's the length of stay, what is, you know, how we're doing on our customer service, patient service surveys, how we're investing the resources together to get the hospitals profitable. I mean, when we started, it was about $1 million a year deficit, and I hear we're down to about $60 million a year and maybe $20 million next year and break even the year after that. I'm very confident with the team that we have in place that we'll get there. And then we need to build out the Phoenix Biomedical Campus, not only with our partner institutions, but Banner's flagship hospital is there. So you'll see a lot more to come about what one of the reasons, I think, primary reasons that you all hired me was to help focus on this. And at this point, I'm excited about what's in the strategic plan, but equally excited about what's going to come in the future. So this is a new college, Initiative 2.5. It's very robust. And it calls for the creation of a College of Data, Computing, and Network Science. This, anytime you start talking about changing the curriculum or starting new colleges, the faculty and the deans get very concerned and tell me I'm going from preaching to meddling now. But I think that, and of course we've got to go through all of the steps to make this a reality. But I really think this is something that if we're going to be the land-grant university for the fourth industrial revolution, it's my opinion that establishing a college like this and making it a college because of the last bullet point down there, which is attracting students. And we could have all of these activities go on in all the colleges, but I think to have it in one centralized location so that these programs and professors and students are centralized and are being prepared for not only our research activities, is sort of the idea of the center of a sunflower with petals coming out of the center. Data, computing, network, and quantum computing are going to be fundamental platform technologies that will support the health sciences. A big part of this is going to be around artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithms, quantum computing. And medicine is moving very rapidly. Siemens, GE, Philips are investing billions of dollars in algorithms that will help to interpret CT scans, pictures of dermatologic lesions, pictures of histopathology, pap smear single cell cells. Is this a cancer? Yes, no. And the way that's done is to compare 10 million normal pictures or images to 10 million with malignant melanoma or small cell cancer of the lung. I think this, along with interacting with our world-renowned MIS program in Eller, with Shane Burgess and all of the incredible opportunities in agriculture, with our engineering college, with humanities because of the opportunities around digital humanities, and using, as we heard this morning, using technology to help students learn better, no matter what discipline it is. I think this is going to be really important. And it brings together and connects some of the things that we have. Cyverse is a huge, that came out of CALS. I think the signature program was sequencing the rice genome. Is now moved into one of the largest data repositories in the world. Putting all these assets together, I think, is going to be an important part in the evolution of the university. Regent Meyer.
Yes, maybe using this as an example. I mean, this is all very exciting that you're talking about, but you know, when we leave today, this wants to accelerate, not slow down. And maybe using this as an example, how do you accelerate it? How do you drive the execution in a way that we're going to see these things materialize in the short term, not the long term?
At the end, I'll have a slide about that. As I keep saying, you know, this is the end of the beginning. The most important part, it's great to have these great ideas. I love the idea of being a futurist, because the only thing you do is just predict the future. You don't ever have to make it happen. And so the idea that we've pulled this vision together, and it's more than just the slides in the 4 hours that we have today. It's all that's in here and even more. It's the implementation phase. We've got to be able to execute it. We've got to have the discipline to stay at this. And it's, not going to be easy. It's going to be a lot of work, but we have to have processes and structure and people and resources in place that will focus on the execution of each one of these initiatives. Not only executing the strategy, but devising existing or new tactics to help us achieve those goals, but also metrics to define success, because you can't change what you don't measure. And then finally, the resources that'll be needed to build on this. But it you know, is a trailer to the end of the presentation. We will come back to you every quarter and tell you initiative by initiative on those 90+ initiatives where we are, and give you an update. And you'll hold us accountable, and it'll be transparent, and we'll all be rowing in the same direction.
President Robbins, perhaps you're going to answer Rick Meyer's question in the way you've just described, but let me just phrase it a different way, but also just say to you before I ask the question that all of us appreciate the engagement that you've really had with this strategic plan. You talked about that at the beginning with all of the constituents that you've worked with, but you have, as you noted, engaged each of us along the way in the strategic plan, and I think that's just really well done. I think as well you've presented something here that has a multi-year process, as you're pointing out, associated with it. It's not a strategic plan for next year, it's a strategic plan for the longer run for the university, and I think that's admirable. But in the end, and this is the tough part, and you and I have talked about this at times, all of us want you to do something in our area, whatever that area is. But in order to achieve this plan, choices must be made, priorities must be set, strategic imperatives for this year and next year must be selected. In some ways, what you've done so far in the presentation is to make it clear that one of the imperatives is a reorganization, and that is this college that you've just been talking about. And I applaud the college. I think it makes a great deal of sense. Having come from the academy, none of us like disruption in organizations. We all like stability so that we can teach our students and do our research. On the other hand, as the environment changes, the organization has to change as well if it's going to accomplish what it needs to down the road in the future. So this appears to be one of those imperatives that you're choosing at this particular point. In what you've done so far, both in talking about the kind of student body you need to put together, and in terms of the importance of certain research areas for this institution, what are some of the other imperatives that you've identified so far that really must be done immediately?
Well, I think, we've come all the way to the 11th hour here to get this plan together, and there's still discussions and negotiations going on and thinking about, for instance, there's a whole set of colleges that we could establish. And I think, I'm eagerly awaiting a report from an external review of our Institute of the Environment. One of the individuals that served on that committee used to be here, was recruited to the University of Washington to establish a college for environmental sciences, for instance. Could we have the discussion about creating a college of environmental sciences here with students that go to many different colleges now? That's an example. So I think there are other examples around what model we're going to deliver this new structured part of general education. Should that be in a college? Should it be run through a program? Should we combine the College of Science, Humanities, Social and Behavioral Science, and Fine Arts into a mega College of Arts and Sciences? These are all questions that will have to be answered in the coming weeks to months, but I think that we'll have those answers very shortly, because when we start deploying resources, that's when we'll have the answer. And at the end, I'll also get into where do we get the resources from? How could we possibly do this, and how could we fund this plan? So important, very difficult questions. I think that certainly if we look to Arizona State, President Crow's done an incredible job of creating new colleges and moving people around. We have a different culture here. So to be able to do something like this in this strong culture of shared governance and the traditions that we have at the university here is going to take a lot of work. But I'm convinced that this one in particular, if we're building the whole plan around the idea that we're going to be the land-grant institution for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, I think back to, what were Oxford and Cambridge thinking about during the First Industrial Revolution, when the Luddites were breaking windows and breaking, weaving machines. What are we going to do? How are we going to prepare our students? How are we going to organize our research activities to be competitive in this rapidly changing world? And I think this is one way to do it.
Bobby, just a quick question. I want to go back to the OSIRIS-REx and the space topic. OSIRIS-REx is no question a home run. But just like the biomedical industry, home runs in any of these research areas are few and far between.
Right.
So what are we doing, if we want to remain number one in the space industry, what are we doing to maintain, look at the next opportunity for that $100 million project grant? What do we need at the U of A to maintain that level of expertise and research?
Well, Dante brought me someone who is a potential recruit and hire, and I don't want to say too much more about it, but it would be, actually there are two recruits that we were talking about. We're already on to, for all of those who are behind me who are saying, don't
say
stop saying it, stop right there. But there's some big projects on the horizon, and there's some key recruits that I think we can make here that would make us competitive. The other thing is, I think that going forward, as I'll, again, spoiler alert for what I'm going to talk about in the next pillar, is the opportunity to work with NAU and in particular ASU to come together, because, as I've said, we're too small. to be competing with each other. We need to come together. It's a good thing for the state. We're part of the same enterprise with this governing board overseeing us. And we have an opportunity to come together with our sister institutions to be very not only competitive, but I think lead the world in space exploration, space science technologies, and in particular the business of space. So I think those are some of the things. But the other thing is to have a presence on the ground in D.C. We've moved one of our incredible individuals who's worked in the Office of Research here, had them move back to D.C. To be close to NASA, because he's an expert in NASA, and he moved here. We wanted to deploy him back there, so we have someone on the ground interacting with NASA. We need someone on the ground there working with the NIH, the NSF, and other agencies, so we know what these opportunities are as they come down the road, and be prepared for them. I think for a $100 million grant for the next things that we know are coming, we need to start making investments of $1 million to put together teams that will help do grant planning, submission, getting all of our CVs together, pulling all of our preliminary research data together, the things that the three of us have published together, and make a compelling argument about why we're the place that should be awarded that contract and do that work, because the agency has to have confidence that they're making a good investment. Those are the kind of things that I think are going to help us maintain our position in space. Also, having the telescopes and being able to continue to have the great weather that we have, which I don't think is going to change too much. We've already got the infrastructure here. So having all those assets, but aligning them and coordinating them is going to be really key. So I've got a couple more slides, and then I just wanted to show validation. We thought we were going to be the first out of the chute to say this is such an important area. If you go back to the Fourth Industrial Revolution book, all the stuff that's in there are part of this college. But of course, we got scooped by MIT a few weeks ago, where they announced their big college or program school with $1 billion backing. So I don't think we're going to have $1 billion to invest in this new college, but certainly we're in good company of being in the leaders in this area around how we're going to change the way we educate the next generation of students and do research. Additionally, Berkeley and Boston University are onto this. And the University of Pittsburgh has a school that was developed by one of our former professors, who's now the dean of that school. And just like the environment school that I talked about earlier, a college, one of our people left to go to Washington to start that college, to be the founding dean. We had another person who worked in the environment be recruited away from the University of Michigan to start an environmental program there. So I think that we're onto the right thing, and it certainly fits with the theme around the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Importantly, this idea came together, and President Owen in his robot-proof book coined the term humanics, and I like that because it's the intersection, and this Fourth Industrial Revolution talk seems very STEMish. I would put an A in there and say we're all about STEAM, because the arts are so important and are going to permeate almost everything we do across this plan. But you know, the humanities, we've already talked about the incredible importance of general education, and that's delivered through the humanities. And we've got incredible programs in writing, in philosophy, in political science and policy. And the idea of bringing together this, the physical, biological, and digital sciences and what impact that's going to have on society. If you look in the fine print of Professor Claus's book, he talks about the good and the bad that are going to happen with this very rapid change in technology and revolution that's going on. I mean, we were talking earlier about everybody has to look at their thing. Did you see that? I'm just checking my phone, thinking that I was just, I was really checking my phone. But everybody is so tied to these things, and I think it's impaired our cognitive ability to remember things, and it's certainly changed interactions of people having meaningful conversations and debate and relationships. So how do we weave that part into this very techie fourth industrial revolution conversation? Well, I think there are plenty of examples and opportunities for us to explore the intended and unintended consequences of this rapidly changing world on society. The moral issues, the ethics. I mean, now you can send one discrete thing to one person in the world and everybody in the world at the same time on Instagram or whatever platform you want to use. So there are consequences, and I think it's an opportunity for us to not only educate our students, but to also do discovery and scholarship around the intersection between the humanities and science. And then at the bottom, of course, there's the whole idea of digital health that I touched on earlier around using artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms to actually help to take care of patients and not to replace pathologists and radiologists, but to help them to do their job better and take care of patients better. So this is just a video that shows two new buildings that we discussed at the committee. The first one is the Applied Science Research Building, where we'll do a lot of this work that's translational, translating fundamental discovery into commercializable products, fulfilling one of our land grant missions around economic development, because we'll spin companies out. And we've also invested in establishing UARC, which is a ability for us and have a program where we can get top secret contracts from the government. We didn't have that ability until we established UARC, and that program will be located in this applied research building with skiffs for conversations that can only be had if you have these very high-level, top-level secret security clearances. And then as we fly across Speedway, south of Speedway, in the parking lot of the Optical Science Building, and for all of you who park there for the basketball games, just come see me. I'll help you out. But we're going to have a Grand Challenges building so that we can do some of the work around the College of Digital Network and Computer Science, around having fundamental discoveries of bringing engineering and optical science and astronomy and health together to make some of these fundamental discoveries. So this will be the Grand Challenge building. It's envisioned to be about 10 stories. We'll house all of the things that are in the strategic plan around the research objectives, and then the Applied Science building right next to the Aeronautical Engineering, just north of Speedway and just southwest of the Health Science campus. So we've got 20 more minutes of questions before we are scheduled for a break.
Well, the break's...
Oh, it's now.
It's now.
I'm behind. I'm way behind.
You're right on time.
Oh, I think you're right.
We have more time for questions, or we could shorten the break.
Well, let's take questions and see how long that takes. Questions, comments from the Regents? I think you've done an extraordinary job of bringing us along in this process. The time we spend individually and collectively with you has really prepared us to hear what you're saying. I found it to be extraordinarily inspirational for me because I think we may not know the how just yet, but I see this as a living plan that will take shape over time as your entire team grapples with just how we execute this. The fact that you brought thousands of your university faculty and the rest of the team here together to have input into this is really important, because as a leader, you can't execute it alone. It'll be executed by everybody in this room and everybody watching university-wide. And I think it's very exciting. I commend you for the reach. It's a tall order. What you outlined there is really the old big, hairy, audacious goal. It's a BHAG, to say the least. And I think that if we can execute it, it will separate and identify U of A as a leader in the world in this area. So my congratulations to you.
Well, I appreciate all your support, but if you thought that part was good, come back after the break. We've got really good stuff later after the break. And I know why. I'm watching how long it's taken. We got started late.
Yes. No, you did a fine job. Any other questions or comments? Regent Heiler, please.
Dr. Robbins, don't worry about the time. It's not dragging. It's very engaging, and we appreciate it. And it is an impressive compilation up to this point. One specific question that I'd like you to address in your thinking about advancing the student experience and the undergraduate offering at the university. At the same time, you're going to reestablish it as a leading research institution and take the research budget up to $800 million. What is your construct for how you intend to pursue both those things at the same time, when in the traditional paradigms they're thought to be at odds with one another? So what is your thinking about that as you go forward?
Well, I don't think it's an either or. I think these are two fundamental missions that we have. And as we were talking about, President Crow was talking about, it's not either or, it's both and. Yes, we're going to get to yes, we're going to do both of these. They're both critically important. And as we shared with you yesterday, there'll be a process that we'll go through to triage and prioritize different initiatives from different of the pillars, and some of which we've already started. The others are low-risk, high-impact investments that we can make immediately, and we have some funds that are set aside for strategically starting to invest in those projects now. The next level and the next tranche will be really dependent on how we can reallocate resources that are currently being deployed across the university, and we're going to have a discussion around RCM and any modifications that could be made to that budgetary process. And then finally, you know, there are many things in this plan that are going to be revenue positive for us and give us new resources to invest in programs that will help our students be successful, or do research and give us an advantage to get the discoveries made better and faster. But one of the key parts of this, of course, will be one of the things that we talked about even in the interview process, is a fundraising campaign. And we raised more money last year than any other single year in the history of the university, over $300 million. And J.P. Wozniak and his team and the deans and people who have spent years developing relationships and presenting inspiring opportunities for investment from donors are to be congratulated for that accomplishment. We're going to have to do better than that every year for this next campaign to be able to have the resources to fund this plan. But it'll be a combination of all those, and we'll have you know, discussions from the senior leaders, the deans, and the implementation team about how we pick and choose in a timely and efficient and smart way which initiatives that we will deploy assets to as time goes on. But we intend to get to all 90 of the things that we've talked about. Now, there's even an initiative, forgotten what number it is, I was going to memorize it. There's an initiative for new initiatives so that this plan can continue to be organic and flexible and interactive. If There are people who come to the university or people who have not been as involved as they thought. If you have a new idea, then you can come to the implementation group and pitch this idea, and maybe we won't do a couple of the other initiatives, but some of these new initiatives.
Other comments or questions before the break? Regent Taylor Robson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to add to your comment about the success of this strategic plan really stemming from President Robbins' engagement of so many people, the thousands of people here at the university community, but also this board. Not only this board as a whole, but each one of us individually have been asked to engage and have engaged. And I think that will go a long way to a successful implementation of the plan. At the end of the day, people support what they help to create. And so you certainly are off on the right foot. The other thing, teams of people that are engaged in this, they seek leadership and they respond to leadership. And your leadership in this is really palpable, and the clarity that you and this plan are providing will be very helpful as you move forward for the implementation of it. And the metrics. Metrics are obviously very important. It's the benchmark from which this board will watch you as you implement this, and as you succeed, as undoubtedly you will. So congratulations. I'll have more to say after your next few pillars, but I think you are off to a great start. So thank you.
Thank you. And we listen. We've listened to each and every one of you. Regent Manson, the last time we met with her, she said, I mentioned to you before that there's nothing about the new vet school in here, and I see that there's still not. And I think now there's something in here about the vet school, because we're all excited about that. It's just that we're going, there's so many things moving very rapidly, and obviously it's a big part of the plan. But I think people around campus, when we've asked them, first of all, they sometimes have issues with what's in or what's not in the plan. And we said, instead of, well, get in line or send us something, come in and let's talk about it. And hours and hours and hours of discussions and deliberations, and many of the things have been changed, and I think probably the biggest changes have been when we listen to students. And there's no perfect plan, and this is obviously will continue to evolve and get better. But having the students involved in telling us, if we're going to be student-centric for this university, we need to know what the students want and what they need, and to help them be successful one student at a time.
Regent Myers.
Yeah, I appreciate one of the underpinning principles of this is leveraging place. And I've often felt that, one of the important aspects of the place we live is our military. And, we have a great asset of the Army down in Fort Huachuca, down in Sierra Vista, with their major focus on intelligence operations. And as I look at this new school of data, I like seeing the word cybersecurity. I mean, it's not all about fighting wars, but it's preventing wars. And I think there's so much U of A could do, and I think it's maybe been an under-realized opportunity to work with the military and to help our place, but also do research in fundamental areas that will help protect our nation and prevent war in the world.
Yeah, and I've had the opportunity to go to U of A Sierra Vista and see our cybersecurity program there, and what Jason Dunham has done there. I think it's going to be a critical part of UARC, this new college, if we can get it executed. And people like Jason's, we just recognized him at the last football game. He's clearly one of the leaders in education around cybersecurity, and it's because he works so closely with the fort there. So we've got a lot of opportunity, and I think that times are exciting. The world is changing very rapidly, as I keep saying, but the idea that you can pay your income tax in Arizona using Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, I mean, who knew? This is a very progressive state. I think it's a pioneering entrepreneurial state. I keep saying I spent time in California and Texas, and this is sort of the perfect blend and perfect place to be, a leader, certainly around higher education and economic development for the state, particularly around health sciences and space.
I was very impressed with what you told us, I think probably even in committee meetings, that just because one of the great programs at the University of Arizona didn't make the plan in terms of what's being presented today doesn't diminish its importance. Getting everybody involved and recognizing that all of these folks, regardless of whether they're listed on the plan or not, are key to the future of the University of Arizona. This will take leadership at every level. It can't be done by this board for certain. We will approve it and support it and do what we can to make it happen, but it will really be the team under your leadership that gets it done. And I think you're off to a great start of not making people feel like they're a loser in the plan, because your emphasis that we're building on the success that we have rather than deciding who's a loser in the plan will win going forward together is a very important message for your team.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And the one thing I keep saying is if you can't find yourself being excited about student success, we're in the wrong place. So that's the most important part of this plan, in my opinion, is getting the resources and developing the programs and just changing the culture and the mindset of service. That I heard Paul talk this morning at the breakfast, and he said exactly what I've always thought. It's when you used to go in these classes in medical schools, look to your right and look to your left. There's only going to be one of you left at the end of this course. And Paul said what I've always thought, which comes from the, Positive Coaching Alliance. If any one of my students fail, it's my fault. It's not their fault. I didn't do a good enough job to help them be successful. I think that cultural shift in our mentality across this campus could help us to be really transformational for no matter who the student is, where they come from. Once they're part of our family, we're their surrogate family, it's our job to help them be successful no matter what we have to do to help them. Now, we've got finite resources and limited resources, but I think just having that mind shift, the idea I've always said about the Ritz-Carlton, it's their job. If you stop anybody in a Ritz-Carlton and say, can you tell me how to get to this place or that, it's their job to help you. And I think that's part of what this cultural shift will be here. I was incredibly impressed there were 7 deans from law schools across the country who came and gave me a remarkable report on what Dean Miller and his colleagues at the law school are doing. And at a time when people were challenging me when I got here, so are you going to close the law school because law schools are, with all due respect, Regent Rodney, law schools are a thing of the past and all that. Well, of course we're not going to close it. So it gave me incredible hope about the future of our law school. But the thing that I was most impressed about is that the students really had no real negative comments about the college and things, and pointed out that even the custodial staff would stop and ask the students, how are you doing today? Is it going all right? How can I help you? We're pulling for you. That kind of pride, and I think that's why a lot of people stay at the university. They could make more money other places, but they want to be part of something that's bigger than themselves. And the thing that helps us to achieve that is if our students go out and be successful. If our research projects succeed and we discover new knowledge and we come up with a new drug to treat cancer better or whatever it is, that's the kind of spirit I think that this plan has the opportunity to achieve.
Those great words, I think it's appropriate to end this first session. If you are ready to do that, Mr. President.
I'm ready, yes, sure.
We have some lunch for Regents in the next 25 minutes or 20 minutes or so. Let's try to be back to start right on time at 11:30. Thank you for your attention, for the wonderful presentation. We'll continue here in 20 minutes. Thank you.